Hello, Stephen. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So, my name is Egil. This is Stephen. We are the co-maintainers of bUnit, and today it's going to be more bUnit work. Stephen has been doing a bunch of stuff upgrading our old attempt at V2 and creating a V2 branch. And so Stephen will have us, walk us through what he did there, cherry picking, porting, redoing some work, so that we have a branch that we can actually start publishing and getting a V2 out. So there's a whole bunch of changes, mostly internal, actually changes we want to do for V2. We want to, make the API a bit more consistent. So that's going to be what you will see from the outside in as users, but internally we would also want to make it a bit easier for us, for ourselves to keep maintaining it and expanding on bUnit's capabilities. So,
Yes.
without further ado, Stephen, show us what you got. Well, as long as not you're not pulling out underpants.
No, not now.
Let's
wait. Let's wait a bit.
Let's wait. Yeah.
Welcome. And as Iggy already mentioned, today we will discuss a bit what are our plans for V2. What is the current state of V2? Because it's boiling under the it's brewing for almost a bit over a year, I guess. So we started
even more than that, I think.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
But I guess the first serious changes we did was somewhere around December, November 2022. So fast forward to now, we did some changes. As I already mentioned, it's mainly API concerns, and our hope that in the future we can deliver features fast because of that. And what we're gonna do today is we just skim through all the new things we have planned, or what is basically also the impact on you, what you have to maybe migrate or not migrate, and maybe also a brief outlook, what's our plan, like kind of a roadmap, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the current work is under V2, and that sounds maybe odd, but we originally had the V2 branch where we did kind of a lot of work. We went back and forth with some features. We tried out a few things. Sometimes we just dropped those things again, and then we decided, okay, at some point we need to clear things up. We need something where we are certain it's compatible with main, because those two branches, they diverged quite heavily over time. As it usually is. New .NET frameworks come out and you have to support them, or you want to support them. That obviously has impact on your code base. And for V2, let's go in here. Oh, I pressed literally on the button because I scrolled. I'm very sorry. Let's go to V2. It does sound like much. They are right now 19 commits ahead of main. That is a cool thing if you do something like a major upgrade twice, because you know exactly what went wrong the first time.
Yeah.
And then
it's always a good thing. Like you created, like that's when you did school reports as well. You created a draft, and if you were eager, you would throw that away and rewrite it again. Yeah.
Well, that
doesn't sound familiar, let's go with that explanation for why we have a V2 and V2 now.
Exactly. Yes, it was obviously only because of that. Yes, no, but just kidding aside. Yes, but at the end, I'm glad we did this second attempt, because I feel like we learned a lot during the initial V2 branch. We learned also what we didn't want to have, and that's a good thing.
And also, if just let me interject a little thing here. This is also just the state of open source. So you start coding on something, and then half a year later you come back to it because life happened, right? So it's almost sometimes another point here was that it was also simply just easier for us to say, okay, well, we have a lot of good ideas. We can't really remember them. We can't remember what we did in our initial V2 branch. So let's just start over and cherry pick the ones we want and refresh our memory. Or rather, have Stephen do it, as it is in this case. So now Stephen will refresh my memory.
Exactly. That's good. That's good. That's good.
But that's sometimes what happens when you do open source. You start something and it just ends up collecting dust, and you can't really remember what you were doing. So
Yeah. And
Anyway, go ahead.
exactly one reason we are doing it right now, you could ask, okay, now it's brewing for almost 1.5 years, maybe even longer. Why are we going or trying to push V2 now? And there's a simple reason. V1 is supporting, I guess, .NET Core 3.1 to, I don't want to say .NET 9, but for sure .NET 8. And to some extent, we will try to at least make V1 compilable with .NET 9, which is coming in 2024 in November.
Yes, this year.
Exactly. We don't plan to implement every feature, but it should be at least compilable.
Yeah.
Um,
So right now the code in V1 is quite littered with if defs and
exactly.
exceptions, and there's things where you have to, mold the code a bit to actually make it work both from all the way .NET Standard 2.0 all
Yeah.
the way to .NET 9 right now. So it's a bit of pain to deal with.
Yeah. Exactly.
But we also want to be the good citizens of open source and follow the SEMVer rules, and dropping an old .NET library of a version, SDK version, would technically mean that we would have to release a new major version, because that would be considered a big breaking change for people who depend on bUnit. So that's why we want to actually do a V2, among other things, but also just to normalize the API a bit, make it more consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That said, I would just jump down literally to the commits, which are ahead of main.
Sounds
and
good.
I would talk a bit about, I don't want to go into detail of every little commit because some of them are quite boring or quite large. So I would just go from top to bottom. And yeah, let's discuss a few things. The first two commits are pretty straightforward. So our plan for V2 is to only support .NET 8 onwards. So we are dropping old frameworks for sure. So everything until, I mean, in theory, only .NET 6, 7, and 8 are currently in the support cycle. But we said, okay, let's start with .NET 8 and .NET 9 for that matter, because you can still use V1, and we are still planning to support V1 for a while. It's not like we make a hard cut. It will be that if there are critical issues or some bugs in V1, that obviously we try to fix them as well there.
Yeah.
So
new features V2.
Exactly. Our baseline for V2 is .NET 8. So the first two commits is just dropping all of that, including all the if dev stuffs we have in our code, because that makes our code cleaner, less code to maintain. Then the third commit, let's open this because it's quite easy to do, is in recent years, also Microsoft added a lot of help for debugging. So if you ever hovered over something in your Visual Studio or Rider or ReShop or whatever tool you use, if you hover over an object, you can use the debugger display to make it a bit easier. So if the toString method of a class doesn't tell you much, or like if you have a record, it tells you too much, then you can use the debugger display to, just show the crucial information, which is the most helpful in your debugging circumstances. So we have a few types. The most important one is the rendered component and the rendered fragment. You can see, for example, what is the type, how often did it get rendered, or if we have the navigation manager, what is your current URI, and how much, how often did you went away with the browser, so to speak, or with the navigation manager. So we added a few of those to, let's say, the most important types you often handle. That's the 80% case. There are probably objects which don't have that, but you are more than welcome to report this back to us, and we will implement something for that.
Or send a PR.
Or set a PR, yeah.
That's... But I guess let's get a V2 branch ready for general, PRness before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Once this is somewhat live. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just the debugger hints. I hope this is a very useful feature. I liked it a lot while I was using it, or while I was implementing it. Yeah. Then the next one, the snapshot API. Let me close that. So the snapshot API, you might have used it somewhat is, let's load the diff. We had this, you can make snapshots and you can say, okay, my initial version looked like that. And then you could make diffs and you could assert against those diffs. And we decided that this is probably not what people are really using.
Well,
And
we can see just by searching GitHub, there's not a lot of people are using that feature, but it does add some overhead to the runtime time. Like that's the additional work that has to happen when we have that feature in there. So we're going to remove it for V2, but you will be able to, those that actually want to have that feature, they can just derive from the bUnit context or test context, and then can basically wrap the calls to render or other methods and basically do the snapshots when they do that. So it's not that we simply just removing the default functionality, but you should be able to re-implement that if you like that feature.
Exactly. Yeah, we also have, this is more for us, but just if you stumble upon the migration guide, this is a very, 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 very brief version of a migration guide. We for sure will have a more detailed one in the documentation later on. It's more for also our brains that we still know what we did there. We documented all of the changes, the breaking changes we did from V1 to V2. And more often than not, we also highlight how you could migrate or how you could keep the functionality with the existing things you have in bUnit version 2. But yeah, this will be with more text later on in the documentation. Yeah, so that is that change. Not so... yeah, perfect. Then the next one that was a very, very small one. I don't think anyone used it. Oh, wait, I closed it even. I don't think anyone used it until now, but we exposed some extensions. I can make, like here you can I make it? Here, sorry. We exposed extensions like is null or empty on enumerable extensions. So this is almost, I see this extension in almost every code base I'm working on. It's not like it's a bad extension. The problem is that because every code base brings it with, it's a high chance of conflicts if you use bUnit as something else. And then we decided, okay, if you really need that, it's so straightforward to do it in your own code that we made it in kernel.
And also, it's more about us limiting the public surface of our APIs so that we can refactor and make breaking changes that are not actually breaking changes to the outside world. So,
yes.
Yep.
The same we did with the logger. Here are also some changes where we thought, okay, they are nice, but they are very much bound to how we would use it. So it's probably not much of use for a user of bUnit. It's more for us. So we decided, okay, let's keep it simple. Don't expose that for V2. And then we can just scrap it. We can just change it however we want.
Yeah. We can also have it as a code snippet somewhere if people want to grab that. It's nothing. It's some examples like this are code that is easy. It's just extension methods on top of our public type, so people can re-implement them if they want to, but it's not something we want to actually have our name to in terms of supporting it and bring it forward. So that's why it's going to internal.
Exactly. Good. Then here comes, now we have a few big ones. And for us, it's, I guess, very helpful. And this could also have impact on other people. Basically, in V1, we have the bUnit core package and we have the bUnit web package. Historically speaking, there was a chance that Blazor can go in multiple directions. I guess it was called Blazor mobile bindings. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There was something like that, yeah. And they were doing all sorts of experience back in the early 2000s, where they were also doing something with generating Flutter things. So Blazor's render model and component model is fairly agnostic in terms of what you're actually producing on the other side. It's just an abstraction. So but it seems like it's fairly settled into web mode. If we ever get something else, we can always create a new extraction. So that was me being very premature and not applying the Yagni principle. So that's why we have multiple different projects.
Yes, exactly. And with that, we could, or we did also gain some cool things that those extensions you saw earlier, or this doesn't only apply to extensions, it applies to many of the types we had in bUnit core. They had to be public so that bUnit web could, see them. And with the merge of that, we are able to, don't expose so much. There are often types you barely interact with, but they were public. And if they're public, people tend to use them in any case. So what we did is we have now bUnit.
It makes it
what
easier
you-
for us to follow the Semver rules again if we don't put things in public that are really just pubternal
Yeah, exactly.
or internal.
The impact for you might be if you're using bUnit core or bUnit web explicitly and not the meta package called bUnit, you have to basically use from the beginning of V2 onwards, you have to use bUnit as NuGet reference.
Yeah.
That also applies if you, if you're like third-party maintainer of bUnit and you want to derive from something, you also need bUnit and not bUnit core or bUnit web. This will be the impact on you.
Yeah. So I have one small caveat here. And so, that's exactly the use case where some libraries, I know, for example, there's the Blazor, what's it called? Blazor local storage package from Chris Sainty. He has a Blazor local storage.bunit package or test package that has a reference to bunit.core. Now, he would just need to update his reference to bUnit, just bUnit, right? Now, the problem here is that when he gets a reference to bUnit, he would also get a reference to Angle Sharp and to like a transitive dependency to Angle Sharp diffing, to other libraries. We don't have a lot of external dependencies, actually. I believe that's more or less those, but they also have transitive dependencies and so on and so forth. So we could have like sort of mirror what XUnit is doing. They have a package system called XUnit abstractions, and then they have just XUnit proper. So, and the XUnit abstractions would be the one that have like a bunch of interfaces or base types there. But it's yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's, well, so for example, with the Blazor local storage library, yes, he would have a reference to bUnit, so that he enables people that want to write bUnit tests and but also use Blazor local storage in their code. No, actually, I don't think it matters, because the end user would, at the end of the day, need to have
bUnit anyway.
So no, I think it's a minor concern. I don't think we need to deal with that.
Yeah.
But yes, there's definitely going to be some challenges for some of those folks that have those kind of packages. There's just a few of them, but taking away bUnit means that they would have to do an upgraded version of their package. And for the few that are actually out there, we might just send a PI in that helps them, do the right thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yes, merging the two projects is more or less what's that about. So
exactly. And here's a common theme why we did a lot of things we did. Basically, it's here on the right side. We can remove some of our code, and it makes things in the future much easier for us.
Yes, and now the files are listed in Git as being moved, right? To some extent, right? Or how does it work? So because if we come back and have to merge something in from V1, it'll be able to understand that it's just moved and not actually not a new file somewhere else.
There are some edits, but as you can see, at least the file, it doesn't make sense that they are changed.
Yeah, the chproj files.
But as you can see, the majority of files. Sometimes it's yeah, that was really an ad. That was on me. I had to merge them later because these files, they were literally there next to each other, and I just created
Same
them.
name. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the same name. One was in core, one was in web, and then I renamed them in wait for states, and here is wait for element. But yeah, minor
Fair enough.
concern.
Yes.
Exactly. And similar to removing abstraction on a project level, we did the same here, removed unused abstraction. We did the same in our code base, and mainly, so in V1, we have I-rendered component base, we have I-rendered fragment.
Steven, hang on. I think your internet is acting up a little bit. At least you have very few frames of video coming through, and your sound is dropping a little bit once in a while.
Okay. Is it better now?
It's still a bit choppy. I don't know if you have any.
I mean, 1 gigabit should be enough, I argue, but you never
Yeah,
know.
maybe it's if you're on Wi-Fi, maybe the Wi-Fi is overloaded right now. It might. Hey,
Yeah, I am.
if there's nothing
Is it
you can do
better?
about it, I don't know. We'll see. Keep talking, and I'll let you know if I can't understand what you're saying.
Okay, so for V2, same theme as you can see here. We removed some abstraction. What does that mean? As you can see, or may you know, in V1 we have the I-rendered fragment base interface. We have the I-rendered component base interface. We have the I-rendered component interface, and we have the I-rendered fragment interface. So we have 4 interfaces, and we have basically 2 implementations of that.
Yes,
It was necessary.
All abstractions. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you were about to say.
Yeah, exactly. It was necessary because we had the bUnit core and bUnit web package. You wanted to have some abstraction if there would be a new renderer or output of Blazor. You could have used just I rendered something. For the user, it would be fine, and we just under the hood would change what is the output. But as we more or less just dropped the plan of supporting non-existent other output than HTML web, so to speak, there was no use anymore of having multiple abstraction layers around the same thing. So it boils now down to we are having a rendered component. So the I is dropped. We have a concrete class, and we have the rendered fragment. These are the only 2 types you will interact with on V2. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all the interfaces are dropped. I was like, are we having something? No. We dropped all the interfaces, and those 2 types are, the sole survivor. And we are still thinking if it might be worth investigating if we only have one of them. But let's see. That's for the future. For now, there are 2 types. Maybe there's only one in the future.
Yeah. So it's always an interesting discussion. Like if you put out an interface, if we kept like just I-rendered components around, and maybe I'm even for just having I-render component and not having anything else, because our T component, if you just pass in, you ask bUnit to render a render fragment, which is like an inline, piece of markup. It could be components, it could just be markup, right? If you ask bUnit to render that, it will return an I-render fragment to you. But I think what I essentially want to do is I want to simplify it even more to say it's always going to return a rendered component, and the T component, that is the base component, will just be a bUnit root component or whatever we call that. So that because you always need some component to render markup inside, or like a child content essentially. Now, should we still have it be an interface? Interfaces do have they are more flexible in terms of covariance and contravariance compared to types. So you can have a list of an interface, and that you return as an output, for example, from a method. And if you want to change something about the actual type, you can have it be covariant and contravariant. If you have a method that returns a concrete type, then you're more limited in terms of what you can actually have in that collection, for example. So I
Yeah.
am thinking about whether or not we want to actually.
The question
Yeah.
is where this is somewhat true for, let's call it, normal C# objects. The question is, how often do you have that with components?
No, so it's not, so it would not be a Blazor component. It would be one of our types. So if we want
Yeah, no,
to,
sorry. I mean, if you have like iRendered component out T component, for example, so here, so you have the
so the T component we can't do
covariance.
much. Yeah, we can't do much about the T component because that's going to be the user supplied thing, right? The user's gonna either specify a component or BR, but it's more like if we have a list at some point of a rendered component of some, inside of that, or if it's an iRender component, we might have more options. But then again, you also still have the generic constraint of the component or rendered component or iRender component, and that is not going to be contravariant anyway. So probably it's fine to stick with having just a concrete type because it's generic. I think so.
I think so too.
Unless, of course, we use iComponent as the base type, which is always going to be anyway, right? Oh man, yeah. No, I think for now, we can go into a bit better beta alpha release of V2 and try it out with a component and see if we run into any issues with not having the concrete types be as flexible as the interface would be. I don't think so, but yeah. Yes.
Then, sure, the next thing. I mean, at the end, it's nice. I can just go through our migration guide. That's really nice. So there's the Blazor renderer, which is the base for our renderer. We call it the test renderer. And on top of the test renderer, we have something called web test renderer. That's why we have this is the same reason why we had the other abstraction. There is Blazor, there is bUnit core, and there's bUnit web. With the merge of bUnit web and bUnit core, there was no reason to keep two around, and so that thing is called test render. I mean, now it's called bUnit test renderer, but the renaming
shouldn't
is
it actually be called bUnit renderer just?
Probably we can also remove test. That's good.
Yeah.
Now that's the good thing about this history now. It's super straightforward to do that later on.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, probably we won't even drop the test in there. That's a good point.
Yeah. So, and you can argue, well, for most, like, that's people that are using bUnit for not test purposes, but just for rendering out markup and controlling that a bit more. And certainly that's also a good option to do that. If, for example, you want to generate emails or something, and you want a more high-level API than the built-in HTML renderer that came with .NET 8, like where you're allowed to basically pass in a component and say, go render this and give me the raw markup out. So with bUnit, you have certainly a lot more depth to the result you get out of rendering a componentry, and you have a bit more control. You don't need to do the API is just more polished. So if you are using, you can use bUnit to render out components in other contexts for tests, and removing some of the references in some of our code to tests may make that more obvious to people. So it's not just for testing; it can use anything.
Yeah, that's true. It would be more aligned with other changes we have discussed in a few minutes, where we really drop the test prefix.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, other test nomenclature.
Exactly. In the same theme, we removed the name fake from not almost, hopefully all types. Whatever had fake before, it's just called bUnit. So you might, or you did use fake navigation manager, and that thing is now called bUnit navigation manager. There are many types we just renamed. And here that's what I said, like, it was called add test authorization, and it's now just called add authorization. So it might make really sense to also rename our test renderer from bUnit test renderer just to bUnit renderer.
Actually, just so one of the other points I had back in the days when I was considering just renaming the types and using the bUnit name in there as a prefix or postfix was to avoid conflicts. For example, we have that with test context. That's a test context type is built into NUnit and MS test. So you always have to prefix those with the bUnit namespace. I do think add authorization needs to have the bUnit in there instead of test, because that is likely going to be you might have, if you're in your production code, you might have add authorization in there as well, because that's going to be your own extension type on top of iService provider or iService collection rather, to sort of set up your authorization for. And I even believe Microsoft has an add authorization or is it use authorization. Either way, we should probably actually have that be at bUnit authorization. And maybe, so this is hard. So the test authorization bits we have, those are very, I guess they are they more test specific than navigation managers? Navigation manager, yeah.
What do you mean?
I'm just contemplating whether it is actually. No, I think consistently calling it at. So depending, well, obviously, no, it depends on, is the add authorization an extension method on iService collection, or is it an extension method on the test context?
In our case,
Yeah.
it's a test context.
Okay, well, in that case, then there's no, no, well, ignore what I said before. In that case, there's no conflict with any add authorizations you might have on.
Well, but I give you the point. There is maybe it's confusing to read as authorization, which isn't directly from ASP.NET, but it's from us. That's one thing maybe.
Yeah.
It transports something. Well, it is authorization, so it's not like it's wrong, but it's not what you would expect in a normal program CS when you read at authorization or at authentication.
No,
But
it's something you use on the bUnit context that sort of enables our fake or authorization double, test double. So that allows you to go and say, well, I want to run my test with an authorized user or an unauthorized user, or with these roles and permissions and things like that. Yeah. Let's put a pin in that. I think for now, let's stick with what we have and what we agreed on previously, because I do remember advocating for calling it removing test from the names. So fake and other things. So let's stick with that and see if we become wiser afterwards.
Exactly. I'm just checking. So there are some types we changed. For example, here we had missing fake authorization, which is now missing bUnit authorization. So just checking. Authentication state was fake. So wherever you had fake as a prefix, it's just now bUnit as a prefix. I guess it's straightforward.
Yes, and I think the idea is that we want to ensure that there's no conflict naming wise with other component or libraries people might be using, and that's what we get by having that bUnit prefix on those kind of types that have that exist in other places as well.
Yeah. Okay, that was the fake to bUnit. Then the next one, also in the same topic as always, merging things because we don't need the abstraction anymore. I do believe the impact for users is very, very slim here. But just that you know, we always had a test context base and a test context. One was living in core, one was living in web. The majority of you guys out there probably inherited directly from test context. So this is one of the changes where you literally have to do 0 things to make it work. It might be that you have some extension methods on test context base because ReSharper, right, or some tools, they always say like, okay, you can use a more generic type in your refactoring tools, and then you are impacted, maybe.
Yeah, and really though, So here is one thing I have been talking about, is that whether we should rename test context to bUnit context. And it would solve some of the issues we have for our in-unit and MS test users. But that would probably also be a case where I would explicitly, because that's the thing that that is the first contact people have with bUnit. That's through the test context. That's the thing you instantiate or inherit from. So so for the other ones, I probably wouldn't want to include sort of an obsolete version of that in the V2. But for just helping people get started, I would have keep a test context type around that that has the obsolete tag on it, and then rename test context to bUnit context, so that anybody who is inheriting or using the test context right now will get hey, this is obsolete, you want to use bUnit context instead, just so that we point people in the right direction. I think that would be valuable. So basically,
So we have
exactly
context, or like it would be like that. That would be
you would basically do that, and then you would have
be a test context.
No, opposite. So you would have test context inherit from bUnit context.
Sorry, yes. Exactly.
Oh, that's right. The real type is the one you have on line 14.
Exactly. Sorry, it took me a while.
Yeah.
Exactly, and then we would have here the obsolete tag.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, look how good. I know 2 weeks ago I complained so much about that, but now I'm like, oh, look at this.
Yeah, and you can probably set it up as, I think you can, there's an additional parameter of the obsolete tag where you can say this is a warning versus
I guess by default it's a warning, huh?
I can't remember. That is error false, I guess. Yeah, the Boolean there. Is it an error? Probably you can just make it a false, so people will have the warning, but it's not a hard thing. Like it, we will remove it at some point, but
exactly.
So yes, and now it's complaining because test context used to be partial, and now it's called bUnit context. So you want to rename.
I didn't rename it in the code base. I just renamed it hard here. So obviously that doesn't work. Just that you get an idea how it would look for you, and then the obvious thing is just rename test context to bUnit context everywhere you did use it. That should be straightforward. Good.
Yeah. Well, search replace, right? But yeah, so it is something definitely that'll have a bigger impact. And we have people that have written books and are thankful for them, displaying how to use bUnit out in the wild with books and with video tutorials and all sorts of things that are not easily changed, right? Mm-hmm. so that does give us some responsibility of not, having people go and buy a book on Blazor development and getting to the testing chapter and none of the test samples work there. Exactly. So that's why we want to, for certain key types that we do want to rename, that we can just leave some, very compiler driven hints in the code to tell people, hey, oh yeah, good idea, zoom in a bit.
Yeah.
I think, by the way, I think it's size-wise good enough.
For a very reason. I know we talked about earlier bUnit test renderer. We did it already. We were. You see, we are.
I definitely thought that was a plan. I just think it's maybe a mistake in the docs that you.
I mean, the docs were right at this moment because I changed that later on and then updated the docs. So that's why sometimes you see also here earlier, so like there's written I rendered component do this and that, and then later on I changed it because it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So okay, that was that exact test context and test context base. The next one is the I test render interface. Not much to talk about that because obviously I wouldn't say people interacted with the concrete instance of the test renderer itself a lot. I would argue 95% of use cases were through the test context. So your impact is 99. Your impact is marginal. The migration path is just use the bUnit renderer if you really, really need this thing.
So honestly, for the most part, the reason why I didn't have it internal back in the day was that I was imagining that might be third parties that wanted to create extensions or help us for bUnit that may need to hook into the renderer. But I do think for the most part that we could just as easily have the bUnit renderer, or at least the reference. It could be a public type. The thing that's called a test renderer, that could just be a public type, but having access to it through the test of the bUnit context, or through the rendered component type, could just as well just be an internal thing. So we may do that, and if there's anybody who has some like that need, that they might come out of the come out and scream at us. But I had it public also because we had those division of libraries with the core and the web originally, and for some of the methods, extensions, and other things we want to do in web, we needed to be able to go to the renderer and talk to it and have it do things. But
Yeah.
I would consider most of the code related to the rendering to be pubternal in bUnit. In a bUnit sense, it's something, it's APIs that's out there, similar to what the Blazor team has, the renderer be public, and some of the core rendering logic in Blazor is also public, but it's not really something, unless you know what you're doing, you're supposed to be messing around with. So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my phone is going off here in the background.
Don't you worry. Okay, the next one. Oh, I missed it earlier. There was abstraction around rendered fragment, rendered component. I guess it was the interface here. That's what I said earlier. Here be the unused abstraction. Let's check what I did here. Maybe we can even rearrange the comments and merge it if this is something.
I think it's fine to also have it separate.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant earlier. Sometimes, because at this point in time there was still an iRendered component, obviously the documentation was still referring to that, but then I changed it later in the docs.
Yeah.
Docs. You get the idea.
As long as you didn't change any cats. Oh man, it's Friday. I'm sorry.
I'm with you. Exactly, test renderer to bUnit renderer without the test in the middle. That is nice and dandy. Then a bigger one. I do like that change.
Yes, I do like that. So sorry, I'm jumping in. Go ahead, say what you want to say.
No.
I can say my part about this is also where I want to have an obsolete. I actually maybe want to keep the render component method.
Yeah.
And then have an obsolete tag, because that's also a core thing. That's a second thing people interact with.
Yeah. So basically the idea is pretty simple. In V1, you could, call it like render. You could call render component. Sometimes you had set parameters in render, where you don't have to put in any arguments. It's just re-renders the component. And this is a zoo of API calls. And at the end, from your point of view, from the user's point of view, what you did is just render something you don't mind. So what we did is render. That's what it is. It renders things, so just call it render. And yes, you are absolutely right. This is, after test context, the thing you come in contact with if you're using bUnit. I guess these are really the two things. I'm not even sure if there's a third thing by far which you would use so often, because when you assert, that's oftentimes through angle sharp, the text content and whatnot. But those two.
Well, yes. So both are the same. But I guess if people are using, not using var, the var keyword, but using the explicit types, then they would also notice a bunch of changes with regards to iRendered component, iRender fragment versus. But I think most people, actually, in presentations, I will use the explicit types, just because people looking at a PowerPoint or my screen can't see what var is by hovering over it, because they don't have the mouse and keyboard. But for everything else, I use var, and I think most people do as well. So I am fine with having that not be something where we do the obsolete thing. But you could also argue we just have a bunch of obsolete old classes hanging around and just sitting in a folder somewhere off to the side, and that has the obsolete attribute on it, and say go here, and it might be worth it. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's put that on the maybe a to do, just to have it and see. So if it doesn't cost us anything in maintainability, right?
Yeah.
So, but for the
Good.
interfaces, for example, the I rendered component and I rendered fragment, they would just be empty stubs, so that they would just sit there and have the attribute. They wouldn't be inheriting from anything or be implemented by some of the other types. So there you would have to, but then at least you would have them there, and they would tell you to go and, so we make it easy for people to discover what they need to do to change. So yes, it's a search replace, but having the compiler say, nope, this doesn't exist anymore, and then tell them what to do instead. That would probably
but in this case, I would really go for making it an error rather than a warning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it would be an error just by the compiler would say, well, you're trying to assign a rendered component to an I rendered component, and that isn't compatible. So you will get that warning. So maybe that's not even necessary, because the compiler is telling you that you're trying to assign something to something that doesn't match anymore. But here's the type. Like it says, you can't assign a rendered component to an I rendered component. So in that case, the user experience would be, okay, I need to change it to render component, and then they are happy and done. And then we actually, so there's no really value for us having the absolute type hanging around, because so I guess my ultimate goal is that the compiler should be able to tell people what to change, right? So that they have an easy path, so they feel like, yes, we are annoying, we're changing things, but at least that's clear what they need to search replace for in their code. And I think that's sort of the ultimate goal here. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No. You know what it reminds you of? So because you have presentations and stuff where you use I rendered fragment base or I rendered fragment and I rendered component, and because it's your library, basically you are a modern Sisyphus, because you are making yourself work. That's literally you, but just for the memes.
Well, I think that's I don't think I want to take all responsibilities of Sisyphus, and but I see what you're getting at. For me, it's easy because I know what changed, right? So I'm more thinking about the user who don't know. So for me, it's an easy search replace, but for others, it might not be if we don't make it so for them. So that's the goal here, right?
Good, exactly. So this is also a bigger one impacting you, but I feel in the long term, it makes easier for beginners of bUnit to understand what's going on, because you just call render all the time. It's super easy. And I guess it's just nicer, to be honest. It's just nicer. Then absolutely. We have, thanks to the merge of, I made a typo. Oh God! Now you see all my what I wanted to keep in the but in the cellar I wanted to hide here. But
now scroll past that.
Okay, so we have the test context base. We don't have the text context base in the text context anymore. They lived in two different assemblies. Now they don't. So there were some extensions. Like here we had an extension. For example, we had authorization, and what we did is basically it's part of the test context itself, so you don't have to call every time this dot it feels unnatural because it was part of the test context itself, but there was always be an extension method. Obviously for the user it was weird. For us it was clear why we did that choice, or why you did that choice.
Different libraries. I'll take the blame. That's fine.
No. There was no blame. I do think it was the right decision at the time.
Well, it was sort of because I made that decision to have bUnit Core and bUnit Web. Then that made some of the other decisions that came after us. Like having all the abstractions, having to use extension methods in bUnit Web to extend, other things. So what we're doing here is we're leading into a pattern that I also see Microsoft utilize quite a bit. So, because sometimes you just have types that grow quite large because they have. So you're not necessarily because you're sort of breaking from the single responsibility principle, but just because they have a bunch of functionality on top of them, like the foundational types. So you see that, for example, if you go to look at the renderer type in Blazor itself, it consists of 4 or 5 different partial files, partial classes that are split into 4 and 5 files that have different names, where each part of the core part of what is in that file is represented. And this is because we are all in the same. You can only use partial classes within the same project, within the same assembly. So that's sort of what opens up to us, and that makes the API much easier and straightforward to work with, more discoverable for the end user. So this is a really good side benefit of merging the bUnit core and bUnit web into a single bUnit project.
Yeah. Just for the record, I don't blame you. I know.
It's like discussion here at home whenever my wife, she talks about all her kitchen appliances, and I'm like, you mean ours? No, that's ours. Then there's other parts that are mine, like
the one which are really tricky to clean.
No, yeah, well that too, but also like like the vacuumer for some reason is always mine, right? So it's things like that. But yeah, no, it's I understand. I'm just teasing, man. It's fine.
Okay, where we? Yeah, sorry. So let me close.
So that was extension methods.
The extension method. So you don't have to call this dot add test authorization or add add authorization or bUnit authorization, or however we want to use name that in the future.
Yeah.
This can be dropped because it's integral part of the identity of that test context type.
And then you have check for duplicates.
Yeah. So I cherry picked that. So the original branch was, I guess, 60 commits we had on top of main. And maybe I will put this somewhere in. So what I did is here there was just a very small one. We can even drop that. I'm not sure if this is really worth it. I know that Microsoft does that for performance optimization, but I oftentimes think it's easier to have a cleaner API. So in earlier versions of the component parameter collection, which we will do, it will be internal in the future anyway. So that's just now getting nerdy here. The list was basically, was nullable, as you can see here on the left side. And that brought some stuff with it, like, okay, here this count thingy. Okay, this one's just easy because it was never set, so it's always false. That was straightforward. So as you can see, it was lazy initialized. And while, yes, there are now a few bytes more allocation, I found it is easier the code is just easier. As you can see here.
Yes, you can also argue that whenever you instantiate a collection parameter collection, or no, component parameter collection, you do that because you need to add parameters, right? So you always need to have one type. I'm fairly certain, yes, you do. Well, maybe not, but anyway, that's very little overhead. Like if you look at the average, just look at the core bits of the Blazor render that we are using in bUnit. There's so many types involved in just rendering out a component. It's quite scary that it's so fast, even with all the work that's going on in there. So newing up an additional empty array that doesn't really get used, that's not really a problem, honestly.
Yeah. And I guess, as you can see, I just removed some of the bits into link. I love functional programming to some extent, and I found it was easier that way. I found it personally, it's easier to read on the right side and on the left side, but this is just some very minor things. And yet this one, because the parameters can't be null anymore, it was pretty straightforward. Just some minor cleanup.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a nice refactor.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if it should be a single commit, but it doesn't matter at the end, I guess. It's easier now that we can discuss things, so probably was the right call. Still, we can end,
I think it's good to have it. Yeah. I think it's good to have things like that as a single commit, also because if you decide there were actually things that it wasn't a refactor and you accidentally broke something or something, then it's one thing you right click and say revert, or you revert that single commit, and then you're back, in a good place. So if you had bunched or a whole bunch of refactorings together, then it would be hard to pick out the thing that actually broke. So rather smaller commits that you can understand through the name and not have too many things going on at the same time. So single responsibility also applies to commits.
Yeah, I like. Then we have the rendered component activator, the idea that was, I guess, also because of abstraction plus maybe. Yeah, exactly. So in theory, there could be types which are not owned by us that have different constructor arguments. But as we only have our types now, I just go to the bits which are important. So here's the bUnit or the iRendered component activator, and we are just newing up now components inside the renderer itself. You can see this somewhere here. I'm just looking for the new. Here. This was important early on. If you would have your own type, that wouldn't work.
Yes. So
So you need a way to
it's
do the
rendered component. It's not component activator, because component activator is something different that actually instantiates the actual.
I'm very sorry.
component.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm not sure we should remove that, but I wanted to see where you're going with it. But the rendered component activator, that was something. Yeah, absolutely. That's an abstraction we don't need anymore.
We removed Microsoft internal types.
Yeah. You have bigger reach than I expected, Steven.
Yeah, that goes in the same direction as asking them to make internals visible to bUnit. Now they only have to do one line of code instead of two. I do think with V2 they are on board with that idea. Yeah. Anyhow, so exactly, we still have two component types or rendered types: the rendered fragment and the rendered component. And as they are now the only types available in bUnit V2, we can just new them up on our own. We don't need kind of a hook, or we don't have to expose a pipeline where those components are just created. So this is literally the same logic. You could argue it's just inlined. I doubt that many people, even though it was inside the container and someone could use that, I really doubt that someone uses that. There might be a 0.1% chance.
Even so, that would be if you created your own bUnit.x library that is like bUnit.web in V1, where you want to control. So that was all about, again, dealing with abstractions and generating the right return type. So absolutely fine. Remove that. We don't need that at all anymore. More complexity. So yeah. It's really amazing to see that what that decision to have the core and the web library, all the code that sort of came after that, just to make things work.
But still, I have to say, it sounds, or it is a bit of mental overhead for your mental picture about how the types interact with each other. You did a very good job in doing that, because I found it still, when I joined you, so to speak, it was still somewhat manageable from a mental picture to know what is going on, how the types are related, and why they are there. So
yeah, I also spent a lot of. I'm not very smart. I had to spend a lot of time figuring it out and moving things around on a whiteboard to see how to make it all work together. But this is just, again, I'm the older you get, the more you have that whole, that small devil sitting on the shoulder just screaming "yak me" into your ears, and the older you get, I think the more you start listening to it and not imagining all sorts of edge cases that you may need to sometime deal with in the future. So this is me removing, this is you removing some of the good ideas that weren't really needed.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you can see, where was it? I sent you that picture. Now I don't find it anymore. Here. The overall theme, as you can see here, is we have there's a clear position where this is going. It's for me at least
4,000 diff in terms of additions, deletions. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Okay, then almost done with the changes. We have this remove component parameter. Basically, you could have impact with that because we directly exposed it. So we have the component parameter. Normally, if you called render component, you could, for example, define it as a tuple of two. Like the left side is obviously the thing you want to assign the variable to, and the right side is the value. And we removed it entirely.
There were like 4 or 5 different ways of passing parameters to a component you wanted to render, and it's just unnecessary complications. It came about during the beta phase of bUnit, and we're throwing lots of stuff at the wall to see what works and what would give us the easiest user experience, best user experience, the developer experience, and actually it wasn't really. And then I decided that I had people using the component parameter version, just passing in raw component parameters and using them up themselves. Having that removed, that will force a lot of people to actually change things. So yeah, but I think most people are either using the render fragment inline or they're using the
Yeah.
component parameter builder factory thing, and hopefully they won't be having any problems. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. I have to step out for 1 second.
Yeah, don't you worry. So I
Keep,
just
keep singing and dancing.
okay, nice. So as you can see on the light on the light side, so light is left and right combined in one word because it's Friday evening. Is that you have this render here, and you could do things like name off and just apply the value whatever you wanted, and basically we drop that entirely. There are better alternatives. You could just use the add function where you have an expression, and that, for example, is at least refactoring friendly. The problem on the left side is, just you mentioned, you have your component that variable or that the parameter is called dummy. You might not spot that. Obviously, your test is red, but the right one is just way easier. So if you use expressions, that is just safety from start to end.
Yeah, strongly typed, refactor friendly, all of that. Yeah, sorry,
exactly.
they called from the school.
No,
so
don't you worry.
Quickly, I could just say no and hang up.
Perfect. Yeah, so that is basically that. So yes, there was also the component factory factory is deleted because we don't have any use for that anymore.
Oh.
I don't think you would have use for that, but yeah, it's gone.
I think it's fine, but yeah, I think those are the so not having component parameter types anymore. And by the way, the reason why we need component parameter is because the parameter view type is there is actually something called a component parameter internally in Blazor, but that's internal, so we can't use that. So we had to create our own versions of that, and yeah, so it's fine. But yeah, I think in terms of having, if we want to add sort of a to-do for ourselves in terms of having the high focus things that people are likely to be most impacted by, these would be this would be the fourth on the list, where there are certainly users out there that are using just using our component parameters directly and passing those in with two string values. So that would be something we would highlight in the migration guide as well.
Yeah.
Like the naming, renaming of things, discarding of things, and then the component parameters.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's just follow up. That's very nice. Then down to the last two changes. The next one is boring for users because it's just about our test files. As we supported .NET standards, .NET Core 3.1 up to .NET 9, and I don't know if any of you did an upgrade from Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly from the origins to the latest and greatest version, and you might see how many new features came in, maybe also how many features you had to refactor. And obviously, we had to maintain all of them side by side. And sometimes it was just way easier to have partial classes or partial test classes with a big if def .NET 5 or greater, and execute your tests against .NET 5 or greater. And because we don't have that anymore, we're just supporting, as you can see here, .NET 5.cs, and it was always the same thing. If I just load the diff here, you can see, for example, here .NET 9, and then there's a lot of bunch of whole things. We don't need this anymore, so we merged our test files together. It's yeah. There's no value for a user. It's more for us to have less clutter around.
So all of that is just internal cleanup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're down to the last commit.
Yes, well done, Stephen. It's
thank you. I mean,
I see it's all 19 hours ago. So
I did this all yesterday in one small session, as you can see. So for everyone who wants to join open source contributions, as you can see, bumping up a library from version 1 to version 2 doesn't take you more than an hour. Of course, I just I just rebased. I'm rebasing constantly to the main branch.
Yeah.
And the thing is, because we did this already on V2, you gain a lot of experience, and if you do this once again, it was kind of easy to do so. The only downside was I couldn't cherry pick a lot of the commits. That's why this was easy. That's why you are in here, but
Yeah.
mainly it's only me. And the reason is very simple. It's really because of, if I cherry picked, I always felt like it's so much easier just if I do it from scratch. Maybe don't have merge issues, because it can happen so quickly that you just run into a merge issue, and then you think you have the idea, you press the wrong button, and then in the worst case it's compilable and your tests might even run, but in the long term there's some issue inside your code. So for me it was easier to do everything from scratch again, but I used our original V2 branch, checked commits, and took what is there. The good parts I took, and just rethought: is it really worth to keep everything, or was it good the way we did it? So that's why you just see my face here. Yeah. Not that I did this. I don't want to. There's the majority of work also comes from you. I just want to make that painfully clear. Good. The last bit, and this one, we already had an issue on V1. So you might know that test context itself was always an idisposable. That is straightforward because frameworks like XUnit support idisposable out of the box. Not so much iasync disposable. The newer versions, I guess they do. XUnit 3, which somewhen comes, does support iasync disposable out of the box. The issue was that sometimes we had the trouble from users that they need basically the iasync disposable hook because they really have asynchronous stuff to dispose of. So what we did is we have now two versions. We have the dispose async, and we have the, where is it? The normal. I can see this because I didn't change that, obviously. You know what? I can make it super easy. Look at this, already in the right type. So if we go here, we have the dispose method that disposes your stuff synchronously. I didn't change much here. I could get rid of one check here though. And then we have the dispose async. And yeah, it does literally the same, just in an async fashion. So whatever you need, both paths are open to you.
Yes, and I do believe, but that's also a to-do feature-wise, is to, I believe we have some new hooks that we can leverage in .NET 8 and forward that allows us to actually probably proper await async component disposal, which was another thing. But that is not really the issue here, I guess, because that's just the test context that we're disposing.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, so the big question is, does it all build? Does it all compile? Does it all work? Because if it do, I think actually the rest of the day should be to start actually pushing out V2 alpha, or should we just go straight to beta release? Beta. Alpha beta. Oh well.
Beta.
Excuse my English.
Let's use Sigma to confuse people. What the hell does it mean? As you can see, the tests are running in the background here. Our faces are not in the way. That's very good. Yeah, they are all nice and green as they should be.
Yeah.
So I am much in favor of, I wouldn't call it alpha, to be honest. There might come smaller adjustments and features.
Should we do the test context change we talked about? That is the big rename that we have left.
I would like that, to be honest.
So if you do just a refactor right now on test context, rename that to bUnit context. That's a whole bunch of things.
Good, and I can directly tell you I need this folder in the background. Let me close that. You will see in a second why. because I have to update also our docs and the samples in the docs. So
Yeah,
yes, they are running. They're up and running. Okay,
yes.
so
And then
I can
should we
just
create an obsolete, like a folder specifically for putting in things that are just hanging out because they're obsolete? Or should we
I
just have it next
probably
to it?
wouldn't. I would
Should
just
we
put
just
it
have it next to
next
it?
to it.
Okay, let's do
Yeah,
that then.
I'm in favor
Yeah,
of that.
yeah.
I would just put it literally down below. Do you have preference?
Maybe in a different file, because if we at some
Okay.
point delete it, then you
Okay.
like in terms of Git changes. So, but you can
Yeah,
write it
I
out
will
there
put
for
it
now.
there. I will put it there. Use. Can I use name of? It should work, huh? I mean,
Yeah,
string interpolation should be a thing, huh?
I think it should be fine. Yeah.
Unit context. Instead.
Yeah.
And if I
Then
do
you
now,
can. Then I think yes, basically do that.
I don't. Okay, GitHub Copilot thinks I'm doing Markdown here.
Yes.
Okay, so
And inherit docs, I guess you want to add one of those.
This is just always that pain that it always starts to almost.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So actually, I would like, because I think there's another the obsolete tag. I think you can do a bit more with that. I think we can include obsolete up.
It only has the message if it's an error and diagnostic ID. URL format.
Yes. So I think what would be nice is if we could. I think if you said is error, but you can also set like diagnostic ID. Well, gets the set URL corresponding. So I would like to have us pass in a link to the a migration guide URL. So we might not have one for now, but it's something certainly we can update. So at least we can have a link to the. Okay, it still thinks it's under.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but I will just use that because GitHub Copilot knows that. So you have to make that work.
I don't even know if that still works. So I did have, before I got bUnit.dev, migration. Maybe should we name the URL migration v1 v2 or something? Oh no, just migration. I guess that's fine.
I think so, because if we have v2 v3, so maybe that's also a good thing. Maybe we should mention that. So our current plan is, because we're still supporting v1, there might be something like v1. I cannot talk anymore. I'm so sorry. v1.bunit.dev, and then you can find the whole documentation as it is today, just with a different subdomain. We're not 100% certain how it will look like, but for sure the old documentation will be available in some form or another.
Yeah, if anybody has any suggestions, do let us know.
If I go to bUnit dev, then let me just make that quicker. We have the documentation here, docs, getting started. I do believe I want to have it somewhere on here, probably under extensions, somewhere there. But for sure we need the docs, just to make the URL somewhat right. Migration HTML. Okay, something like that. Huh?
You don't need HTML, so we just leave that out, because if we don't if you remove HTML up in your browser window now and just hit enter, you will see that it'll just find the page just fine. That's optional. So yeah, so just to keep maybe after use bUnit context instead, then do a space and type test context will be removed in a future release. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. And I guess you can maybe move it out into its own file.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to do that the whole time. To add that. And now I had. It's gone. So I don't want to have the change log MD for sure. Change log MD. Exactly, but I want to have every marked. I want to have everything, huh?
And
I don't want to have bUnit context. how's it called now? Test context file.
No, but if you say star.markdown, right? But
Yeah, but I also need the samples.
yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Says, I hope. There should be now exactly one occurrence less. Damn. I do not know how to. You know what? I will just remove. I will just rename it.
So if you I don't know, like in your Git tool, you can probably see all the changes that
Yeah,
will,
exactly.
come afterwards, and you can go and find the ones that don't work.
So looks good.
Okay, then do.
Hey, that worked even.
Yeah. So if you do a build now,
this for sure would build. I'm more interested. Let me do this meanwhile. I'll open our samples.
Yes, samples,
because they should be still compilable. They should be,
absolutely,
still.
yeah.
So they're also
that
loading.
doesn't look right. bUnit test context. Oh no, this is because of our. This is because of the whole. We have that test context wrapper type that makes it a bit easier for folks to. If you are on in-unit or MS test, because you want to have those clean, like by default, at least that used to be the thing, where the test class is not instantiated after each. So in in-unit, in X-unit, the test class itself is instantiated for every test, which means that the bUnit test context, if you just inherit from that, you will have that cleaned out every time after each test. For MS test and N units, that isn't the case by default. At least it wasn't originally. Let me just check out unit.
I'm test context. Where's it? Bigger. Problems? No. View. Appearance. Zoom in.
But yeah, normally I guess it's when within unit you basically have to have a setup and tear down to reset, and that's why we have that test context wrapper that allows you to do that. So we probably want to rename that as well to bUnit.
Wait. I unfortunately were in the wrong folder. I literally just renamed the docs, which is also fine. It's
what needed to be done.
Now you see, this is exactly. I was like, this was exactly what I was looking for. Test context, and we want to have bUnit context. That looks better. A migration guide, yeah, that is also good. Let's go. And before we continue, exactly, that looks good. Yeah, this one.
So bUnit context wrapper, you haven't renamed that, so we want to do that as well.
No, that was test context wrapper.
Yes. So it's test context wrapper is still there.
Where is that type ID?
Well, I think you renamed it
accidentally. Yeah. So this is test context. No, that is right. That said,
and there used to be a test context wrapper. I guess it might have been renamed, so now it's bUnit context wrapper.
It's a bUnit test. Yeah. Did I rename that in here?
So no. Go back to the file you were in before. Yes. So that should be good.
Nah, the problem is I have to rebuild here. Sometimes it really doesn't pick up new. I know there's a project reference, but I cannot tell you.
bUnit context. That would not be. So you should be able to call that. So here's the thing.
Now it's working.
Yeah, but bUnit, that's not a really good name.
No, I mean just in the clear. This one is just our samples.
Yes, but still the name is not very good.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to.
Would it be I don't know. What should that be named? Because this is NUnit examples, right?
So it would be an NUnit bUnit context. That sounds also weird.
Yeah. Because before it was bUnit test context, the name, which kind of made sense. But we can't rename it to bUnit context because that would conflict with bUnit context.
Not necessarily. Yeah, I mean, it's a different namespace, but it's not great.
No. Like, what would we recommend people if they want to have this? Like, they would. if they wanted to have this test fixture thing where they have so this is basically giving users a base type that their test classes can inherit from, and where the whole setup and teardown of the test context every time is handled for them. And the bUnit context wrapper is what is basically exposing the same functionality in line as if you were in an XUnit scenario.
Context. Yeah, I mean, what a lot of libraries are doing is this here. I'm not a big fan of that.
No, I think so. As you can see, we're basically just exposing. So the bUnit context wrapper type, if you go into that, you can see it has a protected virtual bUnit context, and then it implements the same methods as the bUnit context does.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's still that should just go away. Actually, I know it's something that we have, but it's also super convoluted, right? Because the thing is, whenever we change add methods, remove methods, or add extension,
we have to align it there.
We have to update that. And even when you add, if you have methods that is added and sits on top of, like extension methods sits on top of bUnit context, you don't get them because it's not implemented. At least in the new V2 version, we're not implementing test context. If we had a sort of a base interface that all of them, so actually I'm inclined to.
Yeah. The reason it's obsolete now. Huh?
No, not really. The obsolete is not a problem. It's more the problem.
Sorry. The reason itself is obsolete. It's like it's not true anymore because it was called test context. It was a bit painful to inherit from.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's one issue. So if you just used bUnit test context in NUnit in V1, it would say, well, I have ambiguous reference between NUnit's test context and bUnit's test context. So you have to specify. So you type bUnit.test context. But so that's one thing. But the reason for
you can only inherit from one class.
Sure, that's one thing as well. But the problem is more that in NUnit, let me just share my screen here. I guess there we go. So here you see it, like what we get from XUnit is that when we inherit from the bUnit context type, that bUnit test context gets instantiated before each fact or theory in our test class is run, and then it gets disposed or async disposed after each test has been run. Now, for NUnit, if you inherit from by default, if you inherit from another type, or rather your type here would get instantiated once, and then all the tests would run, and then it gets disposed. So you don't get that after each test. You get it for the full class. So for that, you have setup and teardown, which is run before each test and after each test. And the whole thing we had with the test context wrapper was giving those users the same experience as NUnit has. As XUnit has, where if you go to, I still think the documentation says something along those lines. So if we go down here and have a look at NUnit.
Directly the second part there was there.
Yeah. So here you can either do that, or if you want to, I believe we have this example here, but then you're sharing that test context with everyone. So the other option would be to do something like this. So where you are actually, well, I'm not. So this is basically what you want. So this would basically inherit from the test context wrapper, which is just something that has the same methods. But the thing is, we have to maintain those. And now that we have all those partial methods and extensions and all that, it's not going to be. Yeah, it's not it's not going to be a good experience for the end user, right? So, but you did get the same benefit here, where you could call render component and it would call to this one, which would then forward to the actual test context you had newed up and do its thing. So it's sort of a redirect thing to have the same UI as developer experience. But I'm inclined to pull that out for now. So just pull out this bit and have the test context wrapper go away. Because people could still create their own base type and have a field called, I don't know, context or whatever they want, and they just use that up front. Or they could create their own test context wrapper again. I don't think it's something that we should be supporting, honestly, because it's just headaches for us. Every time we add or we change something in the test context or add a new extension method on something like that, we would actually have to replicate those in the test context wrapper. Otherwise, they wouldn't show up because it's a different type. It doesn't have the same base type as it doesn't inherit from bUnit test context.
Yeah.
If we had an interface, if we have an iBUnit context that the test context wrapper could inherit from, then we would have the compiler tell us whenever we are missing some feature over in the test context wrapper. But we don't. So I think it's better not to, actually. I think it's for the ones that want to keep doing it like this for MS Test and NUnit, they can do that for the by just creating a wrapper themselves, or doing a search replace. And so I am inclined not to do this, actually.
Okay.
Because it's no, I don't think it's a particularly good solution that we came up. It's like a hack, and I would rather just have our examples look like this, where you just say, well, you just knew up the context and you use that for the remainder of the test, and then you're done.
Also means it has to fly.
Yeah, or you put this out in a setup teardown, and then there's a CTX variable that's available, and you put that out there. So we don't introduce magic on top of for a NUnit MS test. And I assume that
that we also have to adopt our templates then. They are using that.
Yes, but I do think this is going to be more idiomatic in NUnit and MS test approach, where the users there are used to having to do this if they need resources specific to the individual test.
Yeah.
So for that, I am actually fine with that, because I am not an NUnit MS test user myself. Or, well, as we see here, you can't just do this. If you want that, you can actually go with NUnit and you can say, hey, that's what I was looking for. Live instance per test class, test case.
Yeah.
If you do that, you get you can just inherit like we do here. I guess this is an NUnit thing. I guess MS test
doesn't support that.
I think it might
far
actually
as I know.
I know that they have actually been working on it quite a bit. So, but I think we could still have this in the docs and say, hey, do it like that, and then you get a new instance every time, and then you can just keep doing it what we do in NUnit. So I'm much rather lean into whatever the ecosystem in NUnit and MS Test has, instead of us trying to band-aid it. So for V2, I'm all for removing it, actually, now that I think about it.
Okay.
So actually, go delete some more code, Stephen.
I did it.
You did it. You did it already.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump over.
I mean, the only thing missing is our documentation, obviously.
Yeah, that would also be more like a delete step kind of a thing.
I guess I don't know if I put this quickly. I guess this whole part, since I guess we can move this part completely and just use the and give our recommendation to use that.
Yes, use that, or make sure you instantiate it in every test, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
And honestly, I do think to some extent, so if you just have basic component rendering, you don't really need to reinstantiate the bUnit context every time, right? As far as I can tell.
Why
But
do we
if
have
you
to start?
have, but because there's the shared services that are going to be reused between each test, so then yeah, it's probably just wise to do that.
I don't want to use. Don't want to delete everything because that would not be correct. That seems better. Sorry,
No, it's okay. Let's just
that.
make sure we get it right. So creating basic test in C# files. This is a simple example of writing test in C# files with using the hello world. And
Where's the last one? Down here? No, it isn't. Yeah, no, that is not true anymore. Hey, we can delete that. Yoo-hoo! You see, there's also now, according to my refactoring, there's also an unit framework bUnit context. Well,
yeah,
I guess that's not true. Yeah, that is also not true. Nice. I do like.
yes.
Perfect. That said, oops, wrong button. These are the samples. Let's compile them once, run all the tests, just that we know it's still working as it should.
Yeah, editor is claiming there's something broken though.
Yeah, that he always does that, and I do not know why. There's this file where he thinks render is ambiguous, which isn't. But thank you. I don't know. For me, that's not an action. He thinks that's an action. But this is, I guess, it's a writer issue because .NET Build and MS Build doesn't complain at all. So my gut tells me it's really nothing we have to worry about. Maybe I should just delete my cache. Maybe that, wait. Maybe that helps already. I wherever that thing is, cache. Probably
Don't you have
appearance.
isn't that like a command thing where you can just type in commands and it'll do it for you? So like a search, like a issue command. Yeah. Delete empty cache. Action, maybe under action. If you go up,
Yeah. Type in action. Wow. Here, invalidate caches. Yeah, come on here. Embedded browser engine caches. Let's go.
Oh, okay. I'll just restart the whole thing, I guess.
Now let's see.
It'll take a little bit of time then, I guess.
Yeah. Damn it, he still wants to. And it's funny, if I go in, the funny part is, while, I mean, yes, this type is basically now allowing an optional parameter that is like the action. But this is not an optional thing, so I really believe this is a non-issue. That it's a UX issue
maybe it's because we would just have a render method, and then that doesn't take any parameters, but just takes a generic, like, because then it's less ambiguous. So if you just have, we have that. Oh, it's called render component.
yeah. If I do this, then yes. Yeah, that would work.
Oh well, doesn't that's a cleanup task for another day, I guess.
Exactly. So that said, obviously it also killed my other instance.
Did all the things build and
yeah, exactly. So here here everything is. Let's do it again because I resetted caches. So let's build this again. Let's execute this. As you can see, green, and another green.
Yes. Okay.
And let's do the same here. That looks good as well. Okay. Yes, that works fine, huh? That said, let's go to the text one migration and let's add a new Oh yeah. Test context
Yes.
is renamed to bUnit context. Yeah, easy.
Okay, and do the same for, so I guess for the test context wrapper that's been removed. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously this doesn't work.
Yeah, so yeah,
I wanted to, copy paste from our documentation how this is implemented. That would be the easiest. You know what I mean? So
yes, but it was based. So I think the recommendation is to either use the lifecycle thing or manually manually have a setup teardown if you have other types you instantiate along the way. So you can just go to, I guess, bUnit.dev to pull out those samples. And we probably actually want to look at the sample code and see if it still makes sense after we rebuild.
yeah, how was that flag called? Do you by heart remember it?
It's on the writing tests. So it's, you mean the life cycle instance per type?
Yes.
Let me share that with you in the chat here.
I have to obviously here do this so I don't see it. No, I have it.
It's
yeah, I have it.
down, and you have to choose yes. So you can check the sample code below.
Either use lifecycle event of the testing framework. Almost perfect. Or use code. Oh yeah, that's not that bad of a hint. Yeah. Okay, then yeah. So you wanted to execute something again?
Did I?
No, I thought like documentation stuff. So I added the docs.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Lifecycle events or the bUnit concept. Click to manage lifecycle. It's yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. Yeah. So people can do whatever is idiomatic to them in that test framework. I don't want to yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Then the second thing was the render component method, huh? On the test context itself.
Yes. So instead of having a render fragment and a rendered fragment and rendered component, we would just have a rendered component.
Sorry. I thought I was still in the obsolete thingy where.
Oh yeah. No,
you know that we say like public virtual, not virtual even, public object. It doesn't even matter what it is. It could even be void because it wouldn't work anyway, as you said.
Oh, so for
you know
this
what I mean?
bit there, I would want that to be a partial class.
I can move it out.
So I moved. So yes, I guess in that case, the compiler doesn't tell you render component method has gone away. And the compiler won't tell you, just tell you it doesn't exist anymore. So there it makes sense to have an obsolete method sticking around. But let's put that in a bUnit context and in a partial file next to it. So it's so that we can delete that without changing the main file. Yes, so make that. And then basically pull in the signature, I guess. So actually, the reason why it's making the namespace wrong when you add a new type is because the root namespace is set wrong, isn't defined. So if you go up to the base type and add in the property group that one up there said room names to be bUnit with a capital B. That should solve that going forward. And I think rendered component doesn't exist anymore, so just do rendered component of G component.
It does it work if it's totally empty? I guess
yes.
Because if you have overloads that use the action build or like the actions or the component parameter builder,
So I guess the question here is, Steven, do we want people to keep using the rendered component method, or should we just have it be like a throw new obsolete exception? I guess I don't know if there's something called an obsolete exception. Yeah, no.
we
can throw an obsolete
supported exception would be the appropriate response, I guess. I mean, it doesn't even matter. You could also do this.
We could also just call it the
exception.
No,
because
I think not.
Well, if you do an obsolete attribute, which is an error, and the only way which ever reaches this code, if you explicitly in your CS branch enable this obsolete, that it's okay. Like, if you do true,
yeah,
then there should be no way you go in here.
Well, unless you change, because I think you can override and say, yeah, I think I actually was suggesting the right thing for you there.
Ooh, nice. You know what? Does that work twice in a row?
No, you can't use type of up in there.
Yeah, of course.
So that would just be name of render methods.
Nice. Awesome. So
should we add the other overloads that we used to have before?
Probably. We have here,
just remove.
Well, we have to do something.
Oh yeah, otherwise the compiler is going to complain.
No, that's not right. How can I select the overload I want to have here? Can I select it? I don't want to have I want to have even this one. Yeah, that's right. Take it. That should be that's the right one. That's the right one. Yeah, who cares? Okay, then indentation matters. Okay, then we have the next one, huh?
Yes.
Public.
Just copy paste the one above, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, did Copilot just do it for you? Let me move us over to the side.
That's even the right
here.
one. That is even the right.
No! Damn it! There we go.
Perfect. Exactly. That is the same one. I mean, I can just copy paste everything like that. Okay. We also had the set parameters and render. While this is a more exotic one, it might make sense to edit anyway.
Yes. You do have a white space to main on line 22.
Thank you.
But set parameters and render are not on test context. On bUnit context, it's on the previously named rendered component. So that would be on rendered component type.
Yeah. So is there something missing now?
No. Yeah. That was one. That was the one that just took a parameter collection, or like the what's it called? The
tuple.
Tuple. Yes. Tuple. The params tuple.
Yeah.
Let me go to GitHub and pull that out first. That would be under bUnit.
Yeah, it was the component parameter which had an implicit cast to the tuple.
Yeah, okay, so we don't need that.
Well, it might be still worth to have it. and telling people, hey, use probably this and that. Oh, did I remove that here? I might be.
I remember.
Well, but yes, this component parameter, not the collection, but the component
No.
parameter, was it?
It's a params. I think you had the option of passing that in, and then it had an implicit conversion to, and I guess
Yeah,
component
exactly here,
parameters
exactly.
still around.
So if I would, use this, then it might be a bit easier. But the problem is it's not always easy to tell what they want. I
No, because
guess.
that's no. So what you want there? We just want the same signatures as we had before. Let me see if I can find extensions. Test. So we have. Oh, and then there's the render inside render tree, which has also been removed, I assume, right? Or are they still around? Render inside render tree.
Yes, it's still around. Well, could argue if we wanna also. Do we need this anymore?
Here is a deep
Render
link
component.
to the existing ones that we have.
Hmm.
And there's more here. No, I don't think we need the render inside render tree anymore either, but I may be wrong.
I mean, there are exactly 0 cases. I mean, this one render uses, but I mean, they can make it internal, or
Yeah.
just move that code inside there.
So if you look at this last file I just sent a link to, so that would be the old render context. It has the method called, it has the params, component parameters as parameters. That's the one you want as well to be obsolete.
Wait.
So the one with the signature. I'm sending chat messages in the private chat, and
Yeah, I see it. Render component params. Yeah, obviously they don't exist anymore. Component parameters internal now, so
yeah.
that wouldn't work. So
Oh,
we
so we
cannot
can't
offer
even
that.
have it. No. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. That's why the best we can do is either like that, do a params of that, which doesn't work, by the way, I guess. Well, it would work. That is the closest to that type.
Mhm.
At least the compiler should treat it equally. I'm not sure if we could have that, I think. Don't you think?
Sorry, I just got a text message from the
Oh,
wife.
sorry.
Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, while you do this, I can inline that weird code here because no one needs that. Juice. No, come here.
Yes, sorry, I'm back with you. So render inside render tree, I have no idea.
Sorry, no, I was. Yeah, wait, I was somewhere else. That was. So exactly, the closest we can come to the old signature would be this.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's worth it.
I think it's fine to just not have that, because there's going to be one render component method that will have an obsolete tag on it, and people will hopefully see that even if they're using the other ones. So
Yeah,
it'll be
I
partial
think so
match,
too.
and then they will be told to go somewhere else. Yes, I think that should be fine.
Yeah, how about just that? I didn't even need that. Okay, awesome. Okay. Then what was the one? Render inside render tree, which has, I mean, it has this using, but this using obviously has some. Is this really the only? No, there are occurrences. Yeah, okay, there are. I mean, it could be probably internal because we are using it. But the only occurrence is, I'm a bit confused. So I saw it here twice. Huh? It's here. And where else? We have this method.
It was an extension method before.
It still is. But this one has a lot of occurrences, which is, I guess, fine. But this one, yeah. Okay, so there are occurrences. I don't want to just remove it.
No. So, but make them internal, I guess. Or we can just move them instead of being in extension methods. We can move them into the test context.
That for sure. You know what? Let me just do this here.
Yeah. Well, let's do one change at a time, I guess. So we
So
yeah. So keep the commits focused and small.
yeah, I will rename them later.
Yeah. No,
For
I
sure.
understand.
Like the last one. I don't know. There was the XML doc which I screwed up. Okay, so we want to move this one basically into the test context. That's bUnit context. Now I have to use the right words.
But Stephen, do we want to just commit the other changes before we go any further, and just leave those for later? Yeah. So what are the changes we have there? That is, obsolete attributes to removed. Render component functions, I guess. And I guess it's methods, since it's .NET and not functional programming.
What you mean?
Render component methods.
Okay.
Okay.
That said, we want to move this. Can we move everything? Oh yeah, we can literally move everything in here, huh? Yeah, easy. bUnit context. Yeah, I know. Now's the question: do we want to have this?
I don't think we
public
want
or not?
No, not public, and not static either.
Yeah, that for sure.
So what they are doing is they're just taking some render fragment. If you find anything in the render tree public property, probably just private, actually. I don't think they're called anywhere else.
Yeah, you're right. That's probably a good call to make.
Nice.
Good. Oh.
Yes. Okay. Now we get rid of all the thises.
Yeah.
this references.
I guess they are. Okay, no, that's just this stuff. Okay,
this is spelling error, I guess, or what it thinks is a spelling error.
Oh yeah, because there's no bUnit.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore.
No, that parameter doesn't
exist anymore.
What is the red squiggly under that? Yellow?
Yeah. I'm always not sure whether or not what he wants is that he wants to basically, and that it would be fine either for us.
But so that is actually what I do want as a change. I don't want to have a rendered fragment anymore. I just want to have a rendered component. And if you are asking us to render a render fragment for you, we're going to return a render component with maybe not call it fragment container, maybe call it the bUnit root component. Yeah. But so yeah, maybe one thing at the time. Exactly. Yeah.
No, wait. The classic, just execute that stuff and check our docs if we ever use that. Okay, there is a method which likes to have that.
No, but that's internal. That's in our assertion space.
Yeah, but obviously that will fail. But why why not just render?
Yes.
I don't see a reason why it should be that method in the first place. Do you see any reason not to use render instead of render instead?
So if you go back to the test method that was using it, that was the markup matches method. And I guess
Mhm.
so the idea is that we are asking it to, we pass in a render fragment saying this is what we want. And to be able to do
Mhm.
that, so that's the interesting thing. Markup matches will, if you have defined like, so we are using the same test context to render expected markup
Mhm.
with. So with markup match, you call that and say this is,
I mean,
yeah, and then, but I'm wondering, and I guess I had that debate myself back when I did that, where I decided to say I'm not sure I would recommend doing that, but I guess that's what I decided to do. Is when you call markup match as a parse in a render fragment, it will be rendered with the same services and same
yeah,
root render tree that you
yes.
define for your component under test.
Uh-huh.
Now, that may or may not be a good idea because, but at least I think it's the behavior we have. Ad hoc render fragment. What the hell is that? I can't even remember doing that.
But ad hoc, I guess it's just 2 words. Ad hoc render, the render fragment.
Yeah.
Which,
Yes.
I mean, wait. Yeah. Okay. The only thing is like it's basically giving you the bUnit context. You could also
So
do.
yeah. But I think you can remove the question mark there. Right. Get bUnit context should always.
Well, no.
No. Yes. So
If
if
you
you
have
have
a random, no. If you call like render in a test
no, this is
like that,
because if you have an inode you didn't get from us, basically inode is an angle sharp thing. Whenever we produce an angle sharp thing, when we return an angle sharp node to you through the node object or through find or find all, those nodes would be generated by bUnit and they would contain that they have their own little services collection inside of them where we can attach information or things to those nodes. And one of the things we attach to the nodes is the bUnit test context.
yeah.
Now, the reason why we can't say for certain that that is there is because you might, for some reason or another, pass in a bUnit an inode, but it wasn't created by us. And I guess we could just say, well, if you do that, then we can't help you. And that might be fair as well to do. So we always assume that if you have an inode and you want to say, does this inode markup match my other render fragment, then the inode was originally provided by us. And if not, we throw an exception saying, hey, this inode doesn't come from bUnit, so we can't really help you with that. But yeah.
Well, doesn't hurt though, but I do understand.
Yeah, no, it doesn't hurt. And that's where the AirCode render fragment comes in, which actually just creates a new bUnit test context. I think.
You could argue we could just remove it in the sense of, I mean, writing this code on your own isn't that big of a
no, and actually, I would probably rather remove it because that gives you something that isn't obvious. You have inconsistent behavior, right? So one times it's using the test context that you knew up, other times it's not, and you might not know why. So actually, it's probably better to remove that and instead say if you delete that and then remove the question mark and then you go to get and that. And if we can't, so actually throw throw new invalid operation exception and maybe spell out for users that this inode did not come from bUnit.
Or by bUnit context.
bUnit context. And then operation is not supported, I guess. So
Or
I think
maybe then it would be this. If you write,
but that's an invalid operation exception. That's a typical thing. You're trying to do something, and the operation isn't valid in this context. So that's why that's a common thing you use in .NET. So you can also remove the question mark from get bUnit context, the method return exactly, and that might again tell us places where we can.
This might wait. maybe we should.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
you can also
we are
do a null.
allowing for some apparent reason. We allow. I mean, we should not allow that, to be honest.
No, so
Why
but
should
you
we
want
allow a
to,
nullable
but it's
node?
yeah, but it's a public method, so we want to have a null check of the node. So if you call get bUnit context with node, and that shouldn't be allowed. But owner might not be there. Context get services might return something from.
I mean, if the old, if there is a
so owner might be null on inode. That's an angle shop thing. We don't control that. So it's fine to have that question mark there.
the context is also not ours.
No. Owner is not either. Owner, like inode is angle sharp.
Okay,
So
cannot be null.
owner might be null. Get services might return null. So yeah, this is fine. And I think what you can do is you can search. There might be angle sharp extensions. There might be other methods that have other similar ones.
Oh no, only this one. Maybe.
Yeah, there's get HTML parser as well. That would also have the same behavior.
Where did you see that?
If you go to angle sharp extensions.cs, yeah, and also the line below, and you could then basically copy paste the error message you had from the other place.
Where is it now? HTML compare. Was it this? Where did I argument? Here.
Well, hang on.
Well, if it did run through our service. How is it used?
Yeah, it's all internal methods that we're using, and we might also want to just turn these into B. It's already, so this is actually already an internal type. The angle sharp extension method is an internal thing. So
yeah, then it's easy.
yeah.
Then we can do
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I mean, then it's just safety nets.
Yes. Yeah, so maybe actually hold on changing those because they are already internal. So I do think that.
I mean, the tests are green. I don't think there's a
no, probably not.
Nice. Okay. Let me just run the tests once again, just to be, absolutely sure, and then we can commit this. I'm a bit lost what we try to achieve afterward. You see, there it goes. Yep.
So we had a bunch of markup matches methods which all have the.
We have another one. Okay, that's a fair that can happen. I mean, if you have no nodes, then this is a fine assumption, I would argue. What did I do here?
So if you have no nodes,
you don't have to render anything.
No, but the thing is that it's actual that is that might be empty. So
yeah, so could be expected. So that might be even fine.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay, so maybe revert those bits there because there were clearly good thoughts behind it.
Oh, wait. Oh God, angle sharp.
No, it's not those. It's more that.
No, it's both. It's both.
Render. Yeah.
It's both files.
Yeah.
Okay.
and the render.
Yeah, of course they have to call them
The-
render again. That was a fine thing to do. Render. And what is here? Render. Okay,
Mhm.
good.
So what did the change actually end up including? If you go, can you show me a diff or something?
So obviously we have the methods which were in the test context render extension,
Yeah, they moved
which
inside.
is now internal private. I'm sorry. And in the markup matches where the get render inside render tree was used, we have render now.
Yes.
That's all.
Okay. Oh, that's fine. Let's commit that. And if everything builds and runs and are happy, I guess we can do. Actually, I guess what I can do is I can go and rename the old V2 branch to V1.
Old. Wasn't?
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, I deleted earlier because we had a V2 V1 branch,
Yeah.
which was the merge.
That was the merge attempt. So let's see if I go up here, view all branches.
So everything nice and green.
Rename. No, that's the wrong one. And that's actually a protected branch. So
Yeah, exactly. I also tried that.
V2 slash first attempt. It's very well named, and I'm going to mark it as being.
Can you
I guess
mark them as obsolete or something?
I can mark them as archived. They're sort of an archived. No, that's sorry. No, that's active.
our notation. I know that we have one archived branch.
Oh, yeah. Well, so if
But
you
I
want
like it. You can.
yeah. Do you want to push your changes, like just rename that branch and to V2, just plain old V2, and
Yeah.
and then can you push that change also to Git?
Yeah. Finally. Just sanity check. Good. Yes.
So now there's a new V2, and I can go and update the branch protection rules to include V2 instead of V22. I need to sign with. Yeah. And yes, time sensitive. Approve. There we go. Okay. So now all your good work should be in where's my branch list again? There you go, 8 branches. So we have main, we have active branches V2, which has a protection tag on it. So I guess, did you push that? I guess that
Yes, I would delete the V2 now.
Well, it is. There's no V2 anymore.
What? Oh.
If you have a look. So
no, there is.
Oh, you're right. You're right. So yeah, we can delete that.
Good. Now it's gone.
Yes. And well, I guess okay. So we should let me go ahead and trigger. Let me just steal
the CI pipeline.
Screen. Yeah, the CI pipeline.
Steal the screen.
Still, so that would be CI workflow.
Can you make your browser a bit bigger? Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So let's see. Did you update the version.json file?
This should be yes. You did this originally, and I just cherry picked that commit.
Okay. So if we go into,
I mean, there's still written version 2.0 alpha, but I guess that's fine.
Well, let's see here in the create NuGet package what it actually does. So yes, .NET 9. This is actually interesting. What does Git version think we're doing? What is the output? Okay,
Yeah, I
let's
saw
see.
something.
Here
2021. That looks right.
in
That looks
Nerd
very
Banking,
nice.
2.201 alpha something. Yes,
That makes sense. Given that we have 20 commits. What, 21?
21. Yes,
It
so
should
Git
be.
high. Yeah.
Or just plus off by one. That's fine.
Mhm. And NuGet package version would be this thing here because we have it set to alpha. A
Awesome. So
pre-release version. So let's see what we actually got out of it. So now we're running the .NET Pack.
for everyone
What
who's
did
watching, either right now live or in the future on YouTube, if V2 is not out at the moment, the docs are still pointing to V1. Just that you know, as a small disclaimer right now.
Absolutely. And I don't think we are gonna update the docs yet.
No. If we know that's like kind of a release candidate preview state, then it might be something worth to do.
Yeah.
But if we
Once-
shift around
once-
the API,
Yeah, it might settle down. Okay, so we got an error actually here, but it did do. So this version naming does look all right.
project file does not exist.
Oh,
Ooh.
I think we need to update the workflow so it doesn't try to go for try to pack bUnit.core.
I'm so stupid. Yes, I didn't do that. I see it right now. Wait, that's super straightforward.
Yeah, but I guess
2
we
lines
need
of
to have
code.
actually. I guess there's gonna be multiple things. Well, the tests are running certainly, so that's a good thing. Let's see, validate docs, how that's doing.
But it's funny because create NuGet doesn't call that. So we have the CI and the release workflow, which would call .NET Pack. So
Yes,
I'm interested why they create NuGet.
CI, but CI does do that, I think. If we go to
Yeah, sorry. Yes, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, create new. Yeah. Shall I push the fix? I already did the
yes.
fix.
So that would be, I guess. So here we have the .NET Pack step, but that would be contingent on the
exactly.
branch name, right? So it would either just be this and then remove these two.
Exactly. Line
Right.
77 and 78, and in the release one, it's the same.
Template is fine and bUnit.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
fine.
Only core and web has to go away.
Yeah.
Now it's the question. Wait. Can I push? Oh, I cannot push.
Can you not push? Okay. Let's see if we can figure out how to. So I've been trying very hard to make it so that you can push.
The
Well,
funny part is on main I can. So whatever you did, it worked on main.
Let's put them up side by side. So V1 main approvals, dismiss still, yada yada, require review from restrict who can dismiss pull request, allow specific actors to
Ooh,
bypass. Yes, you are definitely in
yes.
set list. Require approval for most recent reviewable push.
But this is now for main.
No, that's this is main we're looking at right now. So I just want to read through the list.
Good.
Require conversations before require linear history.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, I guess
Signed
sometimes
commits.
require.
Well, you can still bypass that. It's not like, it's not like you can bypass that stuff. But I think
No,
it's like also
fine
the
to
linear
check it.
history.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Require
There has to
merge
be an active
to-
gate where people have, or we both have to explicitly say, okay, fuck it.
Merges to matching branches must be performed via merge queue. I guess that means if you have multiple commits lined up and all of them,
Yeah.
so that you merge one and then you have
order's
to
right.
order has to be required deployment to successful to be deployment. Well, we don't have really any deployments. Do not allow bypassing above sentence. So we have a bypass.
No.
Push to matching branches. Specify, and allow force push. So I guess, well, you can get force pushers. Well, not Steven. Well,
Yeah, I have
Steven.
to use link.net, I guess. I'm not sure if you can look by.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that's our main branch. Let's go
Uh-huh.
to V2 and see. So require approvals, and I actually think that's more lightweight. So just look at this screen. We have require approvals. I guess we can just
Oh, yeah.
set them up to be exactly the same. So far, so good. Exactly the same. You're in that list as well. You're in that list as well. Okay, let's go down to next section. So we have that.
Ah,
Requires
where's this?
they
This
require
one, this
status checks.
status. Ah,
Choose which must be passed when enable commits. Okay, so I think this might be it. This might actually be a thing that.
yeah. Do we have to save it? Is it saved now? If we turn it on.
The main one is saved. Yes.
No, I mean V2. Sorry, you
Yeah. No.
disabled that, but I tried it and it's still not working. That's why I'm
Yeah.
just.
No, I haven't saved yet. Sorry. No, that is not saved.
Ah,
So
yeah, because I see also as a reason 4
yeah,
of 4 required status checks are expected. That looked
yeah,
very much like it.
that might be the culprit. Okay, the rest looks about the same. And anyone, yes. So now they are identical. So give it a
Yes, it
oh,
worked
push
instantly.
again.
I like it. I push forced directly to
Nice.
somewhere.
Yes. Okay. So okay, let's go back to the actions and see I failed. So validate docs failed as well. Why did you fail?
Oh.
Let's see. So I guess there are some warnings here that are causing it to be reported as failing. So that's referencing.
That's good though.
Yeah, that's actually. I think it's something I enabled recently that you docfx started allowing us to do that. So yes, so that needs fixing. Create NuGet needs fixing, but also why didn't
Oh,
it
the
just
crit.
start? That's true. Why didn't it start? So we need to double check the workflow file because it should have triggered a new run on push.
Let me check. Let's
Right.
go here. Let's go to the workflows. CI
So
branches on push V2. That is
remove
interesting.
pack. Why trigger CI?
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, I see. I see here another one. Juice. Hmm.
Switch to editor.
Do you mean me?
No. I was talking
Okay.
to the rather somebody else was talking to me. So yes, on push branches v2 main, and we only want to run if we have changes to source or tests.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I guess actually to well, in my English keyboard, please. Docs as well, right? Because we do validate the docs, so we do want to run when we push the docs. Don't
I
care
would.
about changelog, readme.
Are you changing the CI YAML file right
Yes,
now?
yeah.
Me
Should I not
too.
do
I
that?
also did that. Well,
Okay,
I did
well,
also.
so if you add this as well to our filter rules here,
Done.
let's see if there's anything in particular up here.
Just yeah, that should work very well. Boss, bUnit, and there it
Okay,
is.
so we do have some special things here. If it's equal to that or ID. Oh, this is just naming stuff. So I think this might be the culprit. Not
You
sure.
found it?
I did. Did I?
No, I don't know. That was my question.
Yeah, no. So yeah, we have this on concurrency cancel. Oh, go away. Cancel on progress. So we basically say if you have a running workflow and you push something else to a new branch, you don't start running again. And this is basically just building up a string that contains information, and I guess it has the verification, then workflow name. Oh, I guess this might be named CI instead of verification. And then you say
do
we
this
take
live.
workflow, concat that to yeah, and then but here you can see we have a specific reference to main and GitHub ID. So maybe that needs to be either. So if it's GitHub ref equals ref heads main and or it is v2 because we want it basically. And
GitHub
yeah,
run ID
so maybe we need a parentheses around that or statement. So it's either v2 or main.
Probably.
Yeah, I can't remember the precedence rules. Precedence rules, not precedence.
Yeah, better expressive than solid.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I would push that, but this one would more. Isn't that like if you have a newer build that the old build gets canceled?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's one part there. I'm just looking over it from top to finish. Is there any v2 specific things? Oh, yeah. Well,
you found?
Or actually, hold on. Should we just create a CI v2 YAML file that is only for v2 instead of having a shared one? I think that might be a good idea because there's also things like, do we want to include all the .NET SDKs down to version 3.0 in a v2 build pipeline? Doesn't seem to need to
Isn't
do that.
No, we did. I removed it already here. On the thing is that for us it's super convenient later if we just remove the v2 if we merge that. We can do this on main later on.
Yeah.
So yes,
I guess as long as we can actually have a release run, I think that's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's not. I mean, this is not a problem right now. For some apparent reason, something doesn't work for sure. I push my commit now. Yes, it's fine for you.
Yeah.
You don't have open. Okay. Yeah, the docs I will check offline because that's not very interesting to look at on the stream. It's just finding where the reference is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's hope that it gets triggered. Okay, let's further hope. Yeah, for some apparent reason, it does not want to start. Shall I trigger it?
Yes, let's do that for now, but I'm not sure why it's not triggering though.
Me neither. I hope it's not because we renamed that. That shouldn't be the issue.
No, it should not.
Okay.
I do want to go into, while that's running, let me jump over here and go to, I'm always browsing for
left. One more left.
Oh no, that was where I wanted to go. So actually, let's do another rename and call this archive. Did I spell that right?
Archived, yeah. Sounds about right.
Yep. And also Wait.
Why is it still the old name?
Oh, I guess it's being renamed, so it hasn't done that yet. Now we go. There we go. Yeah.
Ah.
Deterministic edge cases. Gonna keep that around for archived angle sharp, v2 renderer. Okay. So there we go. I did think there would be what is this? Oh, that's tax.
Nice. Okay. But in the end, I hope that the alpha package is out soon. After I fix the docs.
Yes.
Then we
And
can.
cats. Sorry.
How should I pronounce it?
No. I'm. It's. You're doing fine. Oh, hang on. School is calling again. One second.
But the good thing is, I know that no one can see. Oh wait, I'm obviously I can make that. I will take over the stage. And the good thing is that the NuGet package itself is created. The validate docs probably will not run. I'm well aware of that, but that means if we go here, soon there should be a new bUnit package. I'm not sure. Validate template is also not. Well, then there is no bUnit package. That is not compatible. That yeah. Okay, so the problem is that in our, if I check here, yeah, here. The problem is that the allowed values is obviously here wrong. It's .NET 8 and .NET 9. You see how long this branch is open? That I never ever dared to look into it again. But let's why did I do this twice? That was not smart. Okay, so we have here .NET 8, and the default should be the latest and greatest. So
I found my hat, my .NET Conf hat. That's why
I just took.
Oh,
nice. I only have stuff from NDC somewhere around, but yeah. I found an issue.
I am in my NDC hoodie as well, so wearing all the swag.
Nice. There was still an issue with the template. I fixed it already. We still targeted here. Can you see my screen here? I guess.
Yes.
The old .NET 7 branch as a choice, and I suppose also the default value. Obviously, this has to be adopted because if people may don't know, the templates we obviously also check in our build pipeline where we just try to install the template, and that's a good sanity check whether or not they will work for you. It obviously doesn't cover all the edge cases, but the bare minimum is covered by our CI/CD. Okay, I do think we are in a good spot. It's funny. So create NuGet package runs through. The first tests are green. Validate docs for sure will also get red again. Yeah, probably at some point. Oh no! Right now they're running the sample. Yeah, the build docs will fail. So, do all the checks have to be green before we publish, or? Yeah. Okay. Then I will pick this up later, I guess, with the documentation.
Yeah, I think we have at least validate template, but I think you're pushing that. We need to figure out why the CI pipeline isn't picking it up automatically. And
yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, actually, no, I did know. Now, if you go and have a look at the pipeline, fixed template, that's actually running a CI pipeline right now. Unless you did a PR? No. So I think
there was
that one,
commit push is not manually,
yes.
so it works.
Okay, so
I don't know what we fixed because I didn't fix anything.
No, well, so it could be that renaming of that concurrency thing, right? But it could also be that it just takes a bit for GitHub to rename a branch and push that rename. It's like it might be an eventual consistent thing with naming of branches. So it might not have noticed that before. Invalid code snippets. Yeah.
Oh, that might very well be template. Yeah, some of them unable to find unit reference and talk file. Yeah, I do think I have to go through.
That's actually surprisingly
check
few,
them.
though, considering how many things
Changes we made. Yeah,
like a reference.
I know when I did this on V1, I fairly was sure that I generated the docs from time to time to minimize those issues, but root render tree. Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I was sloppy. I will fix them. Yeah.
No, it's like it takes a bit to go through all of it. So well, not really. It's more like it's more tedious because we are so with docfx you can sort of reference directly into code, and that's actually a nice thing to do to some extent, because if you change, you rename a method, then your docs will tell you that you are talking about a method that doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of a way to make the documentation you have be a bit, you could get type checking for documentation, which is a good thing. So, oh, hang on. My phone is blowing up. 1 second.
Okay. Exactly. And I mean, we can show this in here. For example, if we go somewhere where we directly, like here, bUnit test context. So what we are doing is we just reference that directly, and then you can click on it, and then you have all the documentation. You see how it's inherited. You see our XML doc. So, and you can see also from the session 2 weeks ago where I just put in, hey, YouTube, I'm a comment, that went live as well. We are certainly sure that this is a nice feature. We are not so sure how much of the documentation itself we will keep here versus we inline them into our XML documentation, but it is something for the future. Right now, it's quite nice.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's, kids, running around, people calling me about them. So that's joys of having kids.
So this one, at least this is running. The validate docs, that's obviously normal. Where's the create template one? Shouldn't that be somewhere here?
It's going to be expanded when it gets to it.
I was just I thought that because this normally doesn't take 5 minutes, that one of the quicker ones create NuGet.
Actually,
but it can happen.
We could change the dependencies in the CI pipeline, because I guess validate template uses the NuGet, so that's why it has to happen after.
Exactly, the templates, the literally template.
So create NuGet is apparently taking longer than it normally does.
Yeah, but yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, well, that feels good. I think we are getting fairly close to. I think one thing, if we want to do, if you have a little bit more time, one thing you could also do is would be basically to go and pull out the rendered fragment type, and just return a rendered component also from the render methods that just take a render fragment as input, and just have the T component be, the bUnit root component or whatever.
You mean time in the sense of time now?
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, not very much.
No, that's fine. I was just inspired by our progress and didn't.
No, that's good. I like that though. I like it that we do this. I guess it's a good thing to do it on stream, and
at least we can go back and find the old recordings and remember what we did.
Yes,
but yeah, no, I do think that, because that takes away the last sort of ambiguity I really dislike about having having something. Sometimes a render method will return a rendered fragment, and sometimes it returns a rendered component. And I would just, it just makes it a whole, but like there's methods on a rendered component that isn't on a rendered fragment, and this is just super nice for consistency. But if you don't specify your own component, you just pass in a rendered fragment, well, then you just get our root render component out. and that's I think completely obvious to well, that's going to be a much nicer experience overall. So
Yeah.
Anywho, excellent. I think we're heading in the right direction here. So
Yes. And then
while stuff for building, let's sign off for today. So next Friday, I will be on a plane going home from the MVP Summit from Seattle. So there's not going to be a stream then, unless you want to jump on and do it by yourself. But hopefully I will be able to link up with Scott Saber and help push that testing library API, bUnit query package over the finish line with him, and also hang out a bit and chat with a bunch of other, Blazor and MVP folks there. Maybe also meet up with the Blazor team. So hopefully it's going to be an exciting but very full week for me. So we'll have to skip the next one. But the week after, we should definitely be back and continue.
Perfect. Until then, I'm 99.89% certain that the first version will be on Nougat.
Awesome.
It will be so it's good that we called it alpha. In retrospect, I do think it's good.
Yeah, and I think it's fine also to just go to LinkedIn and chat with people and say, hey, and I can do that on Twitter. I know you're not there anymore, and say and on what's called on Mastodon and say, hey, this is the first of a bunch of alpha releases. Give us your comments, give us your feedback.
Exactly. That would be very nice and very helpful.
Yeah. Exactly.
Perfect.
Anyway, okay, let's call that a stream. Thank you everybody for coding with us, and we will see you in 14 days. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.